Hello, Marengo Mike here, bringing you another best of COS Indiana Live broadcast. So settle back and enjoy. We'll see you all back here again next week. Hello and welcome to COS Indiana Live as we bring you Roundtable. The Roundtable segment is presented here every fourth Monday of the month at 7 p.m. We'll be focusing on education and discussion of the topics and challenges we all face as we use the Constitution to save the Constitution. Join us now as we bring you COS Indiana Roundtable with our MC, John Ackerman.
Welcome back to COS Indiana Roundtable. I'm your host, John Ackerman. This is broadcast number 175 of COS Indiana Live. Joining me in a few moments will be our state leadership team, plus a special guest. Our topic will be Election Day Victories for COS. If you have a question about this, you can ask it during this broadcast. That is, if you're watching live on Facebook or YouTube. All you have to do is click the comment button and enter your question. You can also email the roundtable at this email address, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. You see it on the bottom of the screen, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. After the roundtable conversation has concluded, I'm going to invite you to join Convention of States and show you how to volunteer to help us make a difference. Before bringing the panel on, let me ask you to help us grow this audience by clicking like and share, and by making a comment or asking a question. The Facebook and YouTube algorithms notice viewer responses. They know that something's going on, and then they show it to more of their users. So help us grow our audience by making a comment and by clicking those like and share buttons. And now we welcome our roundtable participants. First up is Dale Parrish, our state director.
Hello, John. How are you?
Hello, Dale. I'm well. Good to see you.
Good to see you. Let's get some more guys up here.
Dale Tipton. Welcome back, Dale. Been a month since I've seen you on here.
Yeah. Greetings, John.
Yes, greetings. And Gary Harbaugh. Hi, Gary.
Hi, John.
Ken Kashuba, he's the guy who's monitoring the comments and questions, and if you put anything there, he's going to find the best ones or pick from among the best to put up on the screen. So welcome back, Ken. Good to see you.
Good evening, John.
And Marty Wood, our state legislative liaison. Welcome back, Marty.
Good evening.
And joining our regular panel members is Bob Suarez. Welcome, Bob.
Welcome. Thank you.
Hey, Bob, tell me, where in Indiana do you live?
I live in Northwest Indiana, Highland, Indiana.
Okay, Northwest Indiana. And what's your role in Convention of States, Indiana?
I'm a legislative liaison.
Okay, that would be a regional legislative liaison, right?
Yes.
So Marty Wood is your boss, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay, Marty, give this guy a raise. He's been working hard. Okay.
I'm here to support him every way I can.
Okay.
I have to salute him whenever I see him. So.
All righty. Well, I'm going to ask Bob a question in just a moment. But to set it up, I want to share with our viewers that while most eyes were fixed on the battle for Congress during the recent election and key governor races. Convention of States was focused on thousands of state legislative districts around the country. We have a grassroots army, and it was in the thick of the races from the primary season right up until the polls closed on election night. And while we certainly saw some disappointments in terms of the bigger picture, there's plenty for us to celebrate. So, Bob, would you briefly recap some of the COS accomplishments nationally?
Yeah, nationally, our teams were active in the elections of 22 states, and they completed over 40,000 phone calls to the Telepatriot app and sent out over 268,000 text messages and visited over 10,000 homes in an effort to get the vote out to advocate for specific candidates.
Wow, they were busy. Now, you mentioned something called the Telepatriot app. Gary knows something about that. Gary, tell us, what is the Telepatriot app and how does it work?
Telepatriot is an app that we have on our phone. And through this app, COS volunteers can easily and quickly make telephone calls and send text messages to targeted audiences. So if we want to get out the vote in a particular state or district, the volunteer simply opens up the app. It'll bring up a name and a telephone number. One touch dials the number. Then comes up, we can leave a result of the call, whether we spoke to somebody or left a voicemail. As soon as that closure is put in, the next name comes up and the next phone number, and just, again, one touch to dial. So you can quickly make phone calls and leave voice messages or speak to people and then record the result of the call if you had a conversation or not. And so we can use this to call either COS volunteers, other activists who've signed the petition, or it can also be bring in a database from an outside source that allows us to call other people who are not necessarily associated with Convention of States, but people who we think are like-minded voters that we want to target to make calls to encourage them to get out and vote.
That's fascinating, Gary. Tell me this, when the volunteers use the app, are they given a script or even suggestions on what they might say when somebody answers the phone?
Good question, John. Yes, there is a suggested script that the caller can use. And if we're sending text messages, there's also oftentimes a canned text message that can be sent out automatically, so it doesn't have to be typed in over and over. And it's just a great use of the technology tools that are available to us. And COS has great technology tools, and this is one of them.
I bet you're looking for volunteers to get on that app next time around, huh?
We are always looking for volunteers who want to get involved, John, all the time.
Well, like I said earlier, at the end of this roundtable, we're going to be telling folks how they can join and how they can volunteer to help. So if there are any viewers out there who are interested in helping with the Telepatriot app, either by making phone calls or text messages, stay tuned, because we'll tell you how you can volunteer to do that. Now, Dale, what you got there for me?
Well, I wanted to add on to this. I serve as a precinct committeeman in our area here, and this is my second election that I've worked in that capacity. And this election, our county GOP implemented basically a Telepatriot application. It wasn't called that. It was it's a different application, but the concept is still the same. And I don't know if that's I don't know if that was done anywhere else in the state, but I just wanted to say that not only COS isn't the only organization using that kind of technology. We implemented it here in our area, in our county, making phone calls instead of walking the precinct.
Get out the vote phone calls.
Yep.
Okay.
So
Well, thanks, Dale. And I want to ask the team, why is it so important that our volunteers made so many phone calls, sent so many texts, and knocked on so many doors before the election? Anybody want to venture an answer to that? Why is it so important that our Indiana volunteers did so much? Yeah, Marty.
Yeah, well, Indiana, we've been very fortunate in that in 2016 we passed our resolution, so we were one of the first states to pass. And since then, I think it's all of our duty to help other states, not only in getting good people into place in their elections, but all of that inches those states closer to passing as well.
That answers an important question. After 2016, which you got to remember, that was 6.5 years ago, we passed our resolution. After that, a lot of us wondered, what is there left for us to do? Well, there's 49 other states out there. And so far, 19 states, right, have passed the resolution. And so we've got a ways to go to get up to the minimum number to call the convention. So our Indiana Patriots do help other states. Thanks for pointing that out, Marty. Okay, well, that's a brief look at the national picture. What about COS activity in some of the states? Bob, what can you tell us happened in North Carolina?
In North Carolina, our volunteers participated in 31 races, 19 in the House and 12 in the Senate. And their performance was pretty incredible. They knocked on 4,400 doors, made 8,500 calls, and sent out over 58,000 text messages advocating for the pro-convention of state candidates. And additionally, they worked with our national team to produce and fund 120 radio ads. So their work paid off big time. And the COS candidates won 22 of those 31 races. And these wins included picking up a Senate seat and 4 House seats for the GOP. So our efforts helped secure a supermajority for Republicans in the Senate.
Well, that's fantastic results in North Carolina. Dale Tipton, have you ever seen anything like that?
Well, I'd like to think, John, that this is just one example of this is exactly what we do as grassroots activists. This is the type of thing that each individual member has the opportunity to participate in, whether it's block walking, going door to door, or making these telepatriot calls. And in fact, North Carolina is potentially one of the very next states that may sign the COS resolution. They are pretty close. And I know that in the last legislative session, the thought was amongst the people in North Carolina that they could pass the COS resolution, but their Senate president declined to call it to the floor for a vote. And so with each individual person we get that's on our side through these efforts, it brings us that much closer to our ultimate goal to get that resolution signed in that state.
Yeah, and that's about the way it worked here in Indiana back in 2016. Yes, Gary.
I wanted to make one more comment about getting out the vote. So in a typical off-year congressional election, only about 40% of all the people vote. So if you think there were 60% of people who would have been eligible to vote if they had gone and registered and decided to vote, the motive is to get those people off the couch who are like-minded to actually vote. Because if we can get even a quarter of those like-minded people off the couch, we could easily win elections. And that's what getting out the vote is really all about, is to motivate and activate the people who are like-minded to actually go to the polls and participate, because we have a government based on who votes, not on what most people think.
Yeah, and it seems like it always comes down to that in most every election. The side that gets out the vote is the side that wins. Yes, Dale Parrish.
Yeah, I wanted to just reiterate something that Dale said about North Carolina. We thought North Carolina was going to be in the fold this year. We thought North Carolina would already have passed the resolution. But if I understand the process right, it was basically one person that held up that from happening. So so North Carolina was a very important state, and every additional person that we can get supportive of convention of states just helps us avoid that kind of situation in the future. So it's very, very important. Very important.
Good point. Very good point. Okay, we have news to share from several other states. Let's go to Ohio. Bob, what happened in Ohio?
Well, along the line that Dale was talking, in Ohio, our team helped COS supportive candidates pick off an incumbent who opposed COS in each chamber.
Okay, well, I want to go back to Dale Parrish, our state director, and ask, why is that so important? What's the reason that it's so important to replace the opposition in state legislatures?
Well, just like we were saying, that could be the deciding individual on the next go around with our resolution. So it's eliminating the obstacles that we've encountered in getting our resolution.
There you go, eliminating obstacles. There's plenty of people who support this.
Right.
And the way that our representative democracy or democratic republic works, committee chairmen and speakers of the House and president pro tems of Senates have an enormous amount of power. And when we can overwhelm them with grassroots power, then they will bend to the will of the people. Gary, did I see your hand up?
Yeah, I want to make one other comment about that. In order to get to like the full House or full Senate, usually we have to get through a committee first. And sometimes those committee votes are like 6-5.
Yeah.
So one vote is incredibly important. Just getting one more vote can make all the difference. And so it's really important.
And it happened big time in Ohio. Anyone else want to chime in on this before we move on to the next state? Okay, you don't have to. I just wanted to give you the chance. Let's go on to Kentucky. Bob, what victories did COS score in Kentucky?
In Kentucky, we were involved in 17 races, winning 16 of them. And in 5 of them, our candidate was challenging an incumbent.
Wow, in 5 of them, challenging an incumbent. That's fantastic. 16 out of 17 wins and unseating 5 incumbents. Marty, you work directly with the legislators in the Indiana state capitol. What would it mean right here in Indiana if we had that kind of supportive senators and representatives?
Well, our supermajority is important from the standpoint of holding those chairmanships on those committees and the position of the Speaker of the House and the Senate President. But obviously, any of the people that are exposed to Indiana politics knows that we don't have all really good qualified candidates. And one of the main principles, in fact, the most specific principle of our petition is term limits.
Yeah. And
it's important. Career politicians or having a politician make a career of politics, I should say, is not a bad thing. People are committed to public service. That's great. But when they stay in one position for a very long time, bad things tend to happen. They get too close to people. People get too close to them. They forget why they're there, and it's important that we keep them moving. So if you're doing a good job in one position, and you've been there for 2 or 3 terms, we get term limits in. You'll do fine. You'll get elected for the next role, and you'll move on. But you won't get you'll get some excitement in your life instead of some people that are typically reaching into your back pocket.
Yeah, not only does power corrupt, but it tends to make us comfortable.
Right.
And when we get comfortable, bad things happen and some good things don't get to happen.
That's right.
Yeah. Anyone else have a comment about this? Ken, we have anything interesting on the Facebook and YouTube comments yet?
Nothing but hope everybody had a good Thanksgiving and a couple of people joining live saying hello. So that's about it.
Okay.
No questions. You're answering them all so thoroughly. I don't think there's anybody got a question yet. So.
Oh man, everybody gets a raise tonight. You guys are terrific. Okay. Well, I want to take a little break right now, and we've got something known as John's Journal, and we're going to hear from that. We'll be right back after this.
Yeah, who is the host of John's Journal, by the way?
Some guy named John who wears
some guy named John Ackerman, I
who
believe.
wears a black cap. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's see what he has to say this time.
All right, here we go.
Double duty.
John Ackerman for Convention of States, Indiana. In this journal, I'm going to borrow from two wise men. One, you know who said it at the time of the American Revolution: now is the time for all men and all women to come to the aid of their country. That's true today. A contemporary guy named Jim Hightower said, "The opposite of courage is not cowardice, it is conformity. Even a dead fish can go with the flow." Jim Hightower said that. Think about his first sentence again. The opposite of courage is not cowardice, it is conformity. In this age where government presses us to conform, do the right thing and we'll tell you what the right thing is. We need women and men of courage. We need women and men who will call for the Convention of States to provide, to suggest, to suggest or propose amendments to the Constitution to limit the scope and reach of the federal government, to impose term limits on federal officials, and to force fiscal restraint. It doesn't take cowardice, it takes conformity to refuse to do courageous things. So you, my friend, stand up for the truth. Join us in the call for a convention to propose amendments. And everywhere you go, especially in local government, be a change agent. Do not conform to the status quo. Stand outside and think outside the box. Be a person of courage. Welcome back to the Roundtable. I hope that came across better on everyone else's screen than it did on mine.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why it was kind of
it was a little jumpy,
a little slow, but
the internet does tricks to us like that. But you know, I've made a whole bunch of those, and I forgot that I made that one, and it seems to be apropos for this topic tonight, because we're going to be asking people to be women and men of courage, to step up and to get active, to get involved, to join this parade that has been so successful in so many states just this month in the general election. And so that's what we've been talking about tonight. We've been reviewing Election Day victories for COS in several states. I want to move on now to South Carolina, and I want to go back to our special guest, Bob. Bob, what happened in South Carolina?
In South Carolina, we advocated for 39 candidates, and 27 of those won, and 21 of them were challenging incumbents.
That's pretty good. Yeah. I did the percentage on that, and that's nearly 70% victories. You know, if a pro football team won that many games, they'd go to the Super Bowl. Anybody in the circle have a comment about the great results in South Carolina? Gary?
I'd like to comment again on the fact that 21 of those, I believe was the number, were challenges to incumbents. And normally the power of incumbency is huge. Nationally, I think about 95% of all incumbents are reelected. And people who are incumbents are often in the pocket of special interests. They've often lost touch with the public. And so being able to challenge that many incumbents and replace them with new people who usually come in much more in tune with what the people think and what the people believe, that's huge. And it's really important in terms of saving our republic and in terms of really getting people involved in self-governance.
Mm-hmm. Very good. Thanks, Gary. Anyone else? Dale Tipton. Dale, you are muted. You'll have to unmute yourself, okay?
There we go. I had somebody slip a mute in there on me without me seeing it, I think. So very good.
I did that.
So I just wanted to point out, Convention of States is an organization that's growing, and it has a little north of 5 million supporters. But whenever you look at 340 million people in the United States, it's still pretty small. So whenever we look at these results and we relish all that has been accomplished, it kind of gives me hope that we can do so much more. So if our organization grows to say 10, 15, 20 million as we proceed toward convention, imagine the impact that could be had on the elections with that kind of a number.
Yep. Good insight. Thanks, Dale. Well, I'll tell you what, before this thing gets too tedious going one state at a time through this whole list of wins, I'm going to ask Bob to just go down the list and share what happened in the next 3 states. Bob?
Okay. Yeah. In West Virginia, in summary, 3 out of the 4 candidates won their races. And in Iowa, we helped 3 COS supported senators hold on to their seats and picked up 1 House seat for a former COS strategist by picking off an incumbent Democrat. So there's 1 other race there, but it's still too close to call. And in Minnesota, we got the get out the vote calls, help pick up open seats for 2 COS supported candidates in the House.
Okay, thanks, Bob. That's good news indeed from those 3 states, West Virginia, Iowa, and Minnesota. Let me ask Dale Tipton if we here in Indiana have ever made get out the vote calls and what the results might have been.
Sure. I mean, during this last election cycle, I was involved in that directly myself, making calls. And within the state of Indiana, we made a total of 1,865 calls into 7 or 8 different states. Some of these calls were strictly get out the vote calls, which might just say, please, this is an important election, get out there, vote your values, but be involved in the process. And others of those were express advocacy calls where if we're allowed by state law, we could say, well, consider this particular candidate who we know is supportive of, the things that COS is trying to bring about. And then we're able to mention that and recommend a candidate directly to the people that we talk to. Mm-hmm. But once again, this is all through Telepatriot. Very well organized. We've got a nice team getting started in Indiana. Hopefully it will grow. But I think 1,865 calls is a pretty good effort.
It's excellent. Excellent. Now, Bob, I understand that you have victories to report from 3 more states. Take it away.
All right. Well, let's go with Michigan. And we helped one of our strongest legislative supporters hold on to his seat in the Senate. And in Hawaii, 2 of the 3 Senate candidates we supported also won the races. The best story, personally, for me is in Indiana, where things went pretty much as expected, except for my home state district, which is Senate District 1. And in there we haven't had a Republican elected here since 1922, for 100 years, basically. There was 1 Republican who got in late 90s, but it was a kind of a fluke. It was one of those elections that was contested, and it was decided by not the voters, but committees or whatever. So basically, the 100-year run, and this time we had, it's a story that was missed by most people, but we had an incumbent Democrat, Mike Griffin, and he was defeated by the Republican Dan Dernok, and I'm not pretty sure how to pronounce his name. He flipped our Senate District 1 with 52% of the vote, the Democrats 48. So, like I said, I suspect that the incumbent Democrat Mike Griffin had just been appointed in 2022. So he was an incumbent, but it's kind of unfair to call him that because he had just gotten in there. He really hadn't run an election. What I did like in this case was that both candidates were very positive in their campaigning. There was never a negative word about Mike Griffin, the Democrat. He was from Highland, well known. I didn't know him. I moved here the last year, but I asked around and nobody had a bad thing to say about him. And the Republican was the same thing. Nobody had a bad thing. He's also from Highland, and there was nothing. And my conclusion was that if you give the people two good candidates, you don't know what happened. And in this case, we flipped it, so it's red. So I'm happy.
Mm-hmm. Well, that's pretty good news. Thanks, Bob. I want to call on Dale Parrish to see what he has to say now. Dale?
Yeah, I wanted to, since we're talking about Indiana, and I hopefully Marty will have some words on this too, but we haven't talked yet about school board elections. We had 4 COS volunteers run for their local school boards here in Indiana, and 2 of them won their elections. Mm-hmm. So we're very, very proud of that. And of course, we want to encourage more COS volunteers to run for political office, be it school board or whatever, at my city council, whatever is of interest to them. But on our last broadcast, COS Indiana Live on November 21st, we interviewed one of the co-founders of Moms for Liberty. And Ken, I don't know if you can, I'm going to put Ken on the spot here, but can you remember any statistics that she gave us about school board elections across the country and how those turned out? Do you recall any numbers that she had given out? They were very impressive. I just will say this, that as far as flipping school boards.
Yeah, you kind of threw that one out there cold on me, Dale. Otherwise, I could have looked them back up again, or wrote them down. They were impressive, from what I remember. Obviously, I think the number was somewhere around 270. If my memory serves me well enough, 270 new first time runners for school board were elected, and that's across the country.
Right.
And I believe there was a if I can remember the percentage, I think it was 80% in Florida. Of course, she said that they actually put money behind it there. So again, we have a lot of work to do in other states where we're able to start to raise funds to promote candidates as well. But I think the number there was, I think they raised $50,000 and put $50,000 towards the elections there in Florida. And of course they had a great result of 80%. And that's just huge. So that's the number wise, that's the best I can remember.
Yeah, that you're very good. Very good. I think you're correct on those. And I think it's just a new indication. It's just the tip of the iceberg, really, as far as it comes to school boards and getting people from convention of states involved in these local school boards. Marty, you got anything you want to add to that?
Yeah, I think the one theme that we want to really stress for tonight, and you've been hearing it so far, is people thought, well, what are we doing as convention of states? We were just here to pass the resolution and get the petition moving, and that was goal number 1. But we've all moved. Those states that have passed have moved on to goal number 2, and that's to get our state ready to go to and participate fully in a convention. And along with that comes the issues that are in our petition, term limits. In Indiana, we only have two positions that are term limited, our governor and our treasurer. A lot of room for term limits in Indiana. Overreach of our federal government. We, saw through the last 2 years a significant overreach of our governor, and a lot of bureaucratic agencies in the state that put a lot of businesses out of business. And our kids have been. It's showing up now, or have been put way behind in their schoolwork because of, school from home or mask mandates. And, then fiscal responsibility. Well, we claim that we've got a good amendment in Indiana that calls for us to meet our budget and stay within our budget. But we still spend a lot of money on a lot of things that should be going back to the taxpayers. And this year coming up, 23, is a budget year. And so you're hearing a theme of getting out, supporting everything at the state and local level. Here in Hamilton County, where I live, just outside of Indianapolis, we had a very contentious school board race. Our school district is the fourth largest in the state. We flipped all 4 seats to brand new candidates, never had served it before, and are geared up to protect the rights of the kids and put the kids first and education first. And, that's grassroots. We want to encourage everybody to get involved. And flipping these races at the state level is where it starts. Even what some of the stuff that goes on in Congress, you may have seen a report in the last few days about some of the new people that have been elected are trying to make themselves known right away. They want to see change. They want to see a change to the status quo. That's been there on both sides of the equation, Republican and Democrat. And they tried to change some rules, and they got overridden. And so that's just going to encourage them even more. And that's what we need. Take your frustration out at the state and local level, because that's the basis for making change in this country. It all starts there.
Yes, it does. It certainly does. Thanks for all that insight. Now, I want to go back and hitchhike on a theme that Bob mentioned in his reports from a lot of these states. He mentioned that Democrats were defeated and Republicans were the victorious ones in race after race after race. And I know the Convention of States is not a partisan political organization, and we can't be, and we never have been, and we never will be. But here we are, advocating apparently for one party to win over another party. And I want to go to our state director, Dale Parrish. Dale, there's a fine line that we in COS have to walk when it comes to partisan politics, isn't there?
You better believe it. And it is sometimes hard to understand, quite honestly. But in Convention of States, basically, it depends upon the state, is what we're told. The legal ramifications. We're a nonprofit. We're a 501c3, so we are legally limited as to what we can do when it comes to elections, as far as supporting candidates or a particular party, and this is going to vary between states. Some states are very, very more lax when it comes to this than others. And here in Indiana, we cannot advocate for a particular candidate, and we can't advocate for a particular party. So we mentioned these school board elections here that we recently had 4 of our COS volunteers run for school board elections. We could not specifically support and promote those individual candidates here in Indiana. Legally, we were not able to do that. Our only means of supporting them was we had to include all the candidates. And so if we wanted to conduct a debate or conduct some sort of a town hall on behalf of these candidates, we would have had to invite all of them. And as a matter of fact, Marty can even comment on this too. We did do surveys for these 4 candidates, and we had to include all the candidates in the survey. We couldn't do it for just our own candidate. So it depends on the state, but it's a very fine line that we have to walk. Otherwise, from a legal standpoint, our status as a nonprofit could be in jeopardy. And we are constantly consulting with our legal department in Convention of States as to, well, can we do this? Can we do that? How about this or that? So we're always consulting our legal people in Convention of States, but it is a fine line. But it's something that we have to do to protect our legal status. Yeah.
Okay. So am I hearing that in some states other than Indiana, we were allowed and we did advocate, please vote for Mr. X or for Mrs. Y?
Right.
We did that sort of thing, right?
Right.
And that's legal in those states.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So that's how such a thing happens. Yes, Marty.
Yeah, and I think the main focus, regardless of, their laws in each state, which obviously have to be followed, but we're looking for people who believe in the same values that we believe, which is our Constitution. And it's hard to imagine that people don't believe in our Constitution. Our Article 5 convention is in Article 5 of our Constitution. Yeah. But there are people along party lines who don't feel comfortable with what the words say and what the intended meaning of that language is. And so, regardless of that, we're trying to give people who are like-minded, who do understand the approach, who do understand the solution, a voice. And and it's easy to give them a voice with the other people who don't believe. That way both voices come out loud and clear, those who are for and those who are against. And we let the voters make up their mind.
It seems to me that's a pretty good educational approach. Let the voters hear both sides, those who believe in the Constitution and those who don't. I know which one I'm going to vote for.
Yeah, and unfortunately, you can't influence every voter to understand the issue the same way either. But at least you can do is get the words out there, let each side have their voice, and trust in the Lord and trust in the voters.
And the point that we made a little while ago is coming up again. It all comes down to which side gets out the vote, because a lot of people stayed home and didn't vote in whatever election you want to name. Because I think, Marty, you're the one who said typically 40% of the electorate comes out in the midterm.
Right.
And so that means if half of 40% is 20%, that means 20% plus one vote determine who wins. Isn't that crazy? It's a tiny minority, 21% of the people who vote for the winner. And they can determine it.
Historically speaking, if you can control 3%, just a number as low as 3% at the state and local level, you can win. You can win an election.
That's what I've heard, and I've seen the mathematics worked out. I couldn't work them out right here on a live Facebook and YouTube broadcast, but I've seen the math, and the magic number is 3%.
Yep. So for anybody who doesn't think their vote counts, please don't think that.
Okay, Dale Tipton, you have a comment.
Well, just another thought. Out of that minority of people that do come to cast their votes, there are many of those folks that are really uneducated voters. And they come because they feel a responsibility to vote, but they may not know who to vote for. And they vote based upon whose names they've seen on the most yard signs, or some other kind of a thing like that. Or Joe the neighbor said, well, I recommend this guy. And being a good citizen requires some work and some research. And it's our duty as citizens, whenever we go to the polls, to have researched those people that that stand for election, and really look for people that support the values that we have within our families and our communities. It's not an easy thing. It does take some work.
Okay, Bob.
Yeah, right along those lines that Dale's bringing up, that's the situation I was in with the local school board. I didn't know anybody. I saw yard signs. I finally I asked around the different people. I went to the police department just asking, where can I get more information? And nobody seemed to know. I went to my church. I finally ended up going to the school district, and they said they're not supposed to talk about that with voters. They didn't want to. She didn't want to appear like she favored anybody, but she finally did kind of whisper to me 3 or 4 of them that were very good. And she didn't mention that didn't say anything bad about anybody else, but these 3 or 4 I generally consider like the best.
Okay.
I took that, and I finally ended up talking to somebody who I know respect that's told me that her friend was an officer in the Lake County Right to Life organization. So whatever yard signs she has are comparable. So that's what I went with. I went with yard signs, somebody that I respected, and those were the people I voted for. But it was pretty pathetic. Pretty pathetic that there wasn't any place I could go where I could get the information written down,
Yeah, it's very difficult, and I took it upon myself to do some due diligence before the election for my local school board.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll tell you the truth, there were 4 positions open, and I only voted in one of them because I couldn't vote for any of the other people.
Oh.
Somebody won, but they didn't win with my help. And yeah, Marty.
Well, and a good way to do this in preparation for an upcoming primary or general election is to go to and let's just stick with the example of school board. Go to a couple of school board meetings. Look at the people that are up there. Understand who are the incumbents that are running. Harder thing is to find the people that are new. But if they're out there doing their job, they're having town hall meetings. They're meeting at different places. They have a Facebook page. You can find out where they're going to be speaking next or who's going to host a little town hall for them. And, private people do private things for those individuals. So it doesn't have to be, and in Indiana, school board races are nonpartisan. So you don't know, on top of that, you don't know who's a Republican, who's a Democrat. And that really shouldn't matter anyway. You want to pick the best person, for the job.
Right.
That was the focus of our founding fathers had, the best, most qualified, God-fearing person for the job.
Yep. Good point. And if I may go out on a limb here, I guess the journal tonight was on courage. I'll exercise a little courage, but I remember that fools rush in where angels fear to tread. I think a valuable way to find out about school board is to contact your local teachers union, ask who they endorse,
and vote for the other guy.
and then vote for the other guy.
Because
I think the teachers union is corrupt, and I'm opening myself up to some lawsuits here, but I haven't mentioned any names. But yeah, I would vote against the teachers union endorsement. I really would.
John,
the teachers I know in the public schools are good people, but their union does not represent them well. Okay,
I
Gary.
see an upcoming John's Journal on the teachers union.
Yeah.
Gary, you had a comment.
Yeah, the comment I want to make about that is that most people don't know who their candidates are. The teachers and the teachers unions are very organized. That's how they get their people elected year after year, because most voters, they're not really studying to find out who these people are. And it has allowed the teachers unions to run the schools. And if you want to think about this for a minute, when General Motors sits down to negotiate with the United Auto Workers, they sit on opposite sides of the table. When public officials who have been elected by unions sit down on the table, they're sitting on the same side of the table with the people they're negotiating with, and the taxpayers are often unrepresented.
That's a good point. And thanks, Gary. Thanks for that. Well, we're going to wrap it up a little bit early tonight. Usually we go right up to an hour, but I think we've pretty well exhausted the topic. And I want to point out that in Convention of States next year, 2023, is our year of activism. Say it again, is our year of activism. And we're going to be encouraging all of our volunteers and supporters to get active on the state level and local level, because that's where government has the greatest impact on people, real people. And that's where we can have the greatest impact for our constitutional values. So the year of activism is coming up in 2023, and you'll be hearing a whole lot more about that. And I just want to add my voice to that and encourage people to be willing to get active. It's one thing to sign the petition. It's another thing to stand up and be counted and do something. Hi, Ken, what you got?
I just have a comment from, the chat boards have been on the quiet side tonight, but based on that last little round discussing teachers union, our own Susan Lyon had a comment that I thought I'd throw up because it does add some weight to that whole area about the teachers union, and this is coming straight from somebody who's had experience with this, and it says someone I know is a teacher who had the head of the teachers union tell her that if she found out she voted Republican, she wouldn't have a job.
Ooh,
so
wow.
There's quite a bit of pressure, and there's a lot of money. And I worked in the book business for years and attended many conferences, which were attended by teachers and librarians. And it was, I mean, if you could find the influence of the Democratic Party anywhere, it was at these conferences and headed up by the teachers unions.
Yeah.
And also at this point, I know I've got a follow-up comment on that. Well, let's see. I've got a follow-up comment on that. I hit the wrong button. Brandon is saying that that's illegal, and she does need to report that. So it is highly illegal.
Well, who would you report it to? That's the question.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I don't know, Brandon. Do you have a follow-up to the follow-up? Who would you report that to? I know that
it's a threat, but it's only a threat. It's not action. It's not
an action yet, but
so I wouldn't know who to report it to. Or
yeah, I think if you were if you were a teacher and you were being threatened like that, I think maybe an attorney. If your job's been threatened, or maybe there's a group maybe that could defend those types of threats, or
could be
threats of action in a teacher situation like that, a board.
Yep. Okay, well that adds a little spice to the conversation. Thank you, Brandon. State Attorney General or the Department of Education. Good ideas. Yeah. And I'm sure either place there would have something to say about it, and recommendations and suggestions. So that's great. Well, I want to thank the Roundtable. We've had a lively and interesting conversation, and we'll see you all next month. Now I want to show you a message from our National COS President, Mark Meckler, and it's called The Day I'll Quit Fighting.
Okay, I'm going to bring this video up. I hope it plays better than the last one did. So let's keep our fingers crossed, okay?
It doesn't make sense to me. Sam Adams said, for those of you who prefer safety and security over liberty, over the animating fight for liberty, I hope that you enjoy licking the hands that feed you. May your chains rest lightly upon you, and may posterity forget that you are our countrymen. Like, do you understand that your kids and you are sentencing your kids and your grandkids and your friends' kids and your neighbors' kids to a lifetime of slavery and servitude, literally, of fear, of living in the darkness, but never, ever, never, never, never give up. George Washington lost the majority of his battles that he fought in the American Revolution. If you read his writings, if you read the letters where he was writing to Congress asking for money and troops, he was saying, we're losing. I don't have the troops I need. I don't have the supplies I need. Did he quit? What about the guys on the beach at Normandy? Like, what did they do? Did they just quit? Oh, there's, a lot of guys are dying around me. It's really bad. It looks really dismal. Those cliffs are huge. Machine gun fire raining down on us. And it's too hard. We should just quit. Thank God those people didn't quit. If they had, where would we be? I get discouraged, for sure. And I will quit fighting at some point. And that point is when the first shovel of dirt hits the top of my box 6 feet down.
Wow. Well, I want to invite you, if you haven't joined already, invite you now to join Convention of States by visiting our website, which is conventionofstates.com. That's conventionofstates.com. You fill out the little boxes there in the middle, your name and your email and phone number, your street address, get all those things in there, and then you have signed the petition and you've joined. Now, if you really want to make a difference, click that Take Action in the top menu bar, and then when that screen comes up, click Take Action, and then click Become a Leader. And there you can see the leadership positions that we have open, and you can apply for a leadership position in Indiana or any other state. And I say to you, now is the time to visit conventionofstates.com, click Take Action, and help us to make history. That brings us to the end of this month's roundtable. And before I say goodbye, I want to remind you of our email address. Between now and the future, anytime in the future, if you have any questions at all about Convention of States, email them to us at that address, raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. That's raiseyourvoicecos@gmail.com. Be sure to tune in next Monday, December the 5th at 7 p.m. Eastern for our regular COS Indiana Live with Debbie Stewart, who's going to talk about 2030, the Great American Reset. That sounds like something I want to listen to, and you do too. That's next Monday, December the 5th. Debbie Stewart, 2030, the Great American Reset. And the next roundtable will be a best of on December the 26th. That's the day after Christmas. And rather than doing a live one, we're going to play a best of on December the 26th. And then our next live roundtable will be in January on the 23rd of 2023. So be sure to tune in for all those good shows. And that's it for now. I'm John Ackerman for COS Indiana Roundtable. Good night.